Riders. Those who forge bonds with monsters.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Backlog, the little show that I put to the side to play the games and talk about the games that I myself or even you have passed up in the past, whether that is because of just oversaturation of games coming out at the time, maybe something else just caught my eye. Other than that, whatever the reason may be, we're going back to look at some games that we may have missed. Today I'm going to talk about Monster Hunter Stories, number 1. Because this one, I've been waiting to finish because I've tried this one before and I have a little bit of past with it and I love Monster Hunter. So let's talk about how Monster Hunter Stories went for me. Monster Hunter Stories is a different beast from the mainline games, where the mainline games have a very hardcore kind of loop where it's you and the monster and all about the duel between you two and learning that monster's attacks, learning their patterns, hunting the monsters, making the armor. It is just a different experience entirely. But right when you look at Monster Hunter Stories, this game is very lighthearted and has a very whimsical art style, a very old chibi style, if you will. Chibi being like the small, cute designs of anime if you are not an anime viewer. I actually had tried playing Monster Hunter Stories way long time ago on the 3DS when a friend of mine had got it for me. And I did get pretty far through it, but I never beat the story. I never really grasped me like I hoped it would. But then they announced that they were going to make a new port of Stories for like current and next gen consoles at the time, PS4 and 5, and PC. So I quickly ran and got the PC version when I knew I could play it through. And I'm happy I did because Monster Hunter Stories is a great time. This one I can tell, apart from 2 and 3, if you have played 2 and 3, which I have heard that you can play those without playing number 1, which is good. But I would actually say play this one. It may not be a story focused, like it is all about the story in this game, but it's not like, you know, this super engaging story that you're just waiting for every single beat, waiting for the next thing to happen. It's just an adventure you are on with your monsters, and there is a goal to, you know, be had. But most of the joy of Monster Hunter Stories doesn't come from, ironically, its story. It comes from the game. This is a kind of like almost Pokemon Light, where the goal is to capture these monsters, which in this, they're called monsties, because, you know, hunters and riders are very different. Riders are much nicer, so they call them monsties. And their entire goal with the monsties is to raise them from an egg to have a powerful bond with their rider so that they're not exactly being ordered to do things. They're, you know, one with their rider, and nothing can get between that. And that is basically the whole thing that's going on here. It delves into the relationship between monsties and their riders and how differently they see the world as opposed to hunters and how they see monsters. Even though there are a lot of similarities in the way they respect the monsters, there are a lot of differences, and I think those were actually the cooler parts of the game when those differences kind of came to a head. Even though it doesn't tackle that a whole lot, the second half of the game does deal with more of that and was much more interesting to, you know, pay attention to and experience. But like I said, the gameplay is most important here. The monsties you will be catching will be usually in egg form. Now this means that you are sneaking into monster dens to go and sneak these eggs out from under the nose of the monsters so you can go and hatch them at your town. Which, you know, when you say it out loud like that, kind of makes the hunters sound a little villainous because they're just a bunch of egg thieves that are raising these monsters to, you know, do their bidding. So, you know, there is some underlying, is that necessarily right going on here? But, you know, it does make for a fun gameplay loop. Going into each den can bring you vastly different monsters depending on where you're at. There are different rarities of dens. Even going into when you finish the story, there is a type of end game, just like there is in every other Monster Hunter game. And the dens in this mode are much, much harder. You really hit the like high rank part at the end of the story, and it really brings the difficulty, I will say. Stories also comes packaged with appearances from a ton of monsters, some of which I didn't actually expect to be in here. There are a ton of classic monsters and newer monsters, because this is a 3DS game. New-ish monsters, I should say. It has a good selection of monsters, and the customization that you can do with them is also very great. You will unlock eventually this thing called Rite of Channeling, that has you taking a monster and take another one who has, say, a skill in one of these slots that you want, and you could channel that monster into yours to then have that skill put onto your monster. This will absorb the other monster. That other one will no longer exist, but this is the basic loop on how you're building your monsters. You're using each one as like a building block to make the one perfect monster. And that really drives this whole game. And I will say, it took me about 5 or 6 hours to really get behind it and really start to experiment and see this freedom when it came to how to build out these monsters and their abilities and things, because it is a ways in there that they choose to kind of, just barely spoon feed you these little bits of the loop that you're going to be in later. It does take a while to kind of settle in, so I would say be ready for kind of a slow start.
So this is the Black Blight, huh? Oh, look out!
But once you get the ball rolling and figuring out how dens work, how to pick monsters, how to find out which eggs are worth your time to take and which ones are, worth leaving here, which does lead me to one other thing. The way you do that is with your companion, Naviru. He will tell you basically if a egg is worth taking or if it isn't. And I will tell you right now, just to help you in the future, if he says it's smelly and he says it's heavy, take it. If he says it's light, if he says it doesn't smell, leave it. Other than that, pick by color to kind of get an idea of what monster you have, and you'll have the entire loop down. You'll be able to go and find the monsters you need, the ones you want, and make sure they have high stats, all of that. And it makes for a really compelling gameplay loop that I enjoyed far more than I thought I was going to, especially at the tail end when the power really started to show itself, when you can line up these abilities, get them in the right spots, have them be powered up more and more and more. And when you see the effects of all of the work you've done and put into these monsters individually, it brings a connection not just between your rider and your monster, but between you and that same monster, being as you put all this work in to make it what it is now. Which I do find to be very interesting in contrast to Monster Hunter, the normal mainline series, because we love monsters in that because we love to see them. We love to see their majesty, their crazy moves. We love to fight them. They're just fun to engage with. But here, you like these monsters for the opposite, for what they do for you, So I think that contrast is pretty cool between the mainline and these ones. But it really does make me super excited to play Twisted Reflection, the second one, and whatever the third one is called. I can't remember right now. Whatever the third game is called, I've heard that it's very, very good, as well as the second one. So I am super hyped to play those. I already have them, and I will be definitely making videos on those in the future. And as well as in the future, I'll have more tightly scripted little sections for these backlog shows for you. But I never want them to go into like an overly analyzed review, because I feel like that's not really what you need for games that have kind of come out in a backlog. And a lot of gamers who are going to be watching this video and looking things up about them already know some things about them. So let me know in the comments, do you like a more casual conversation where you just kind of jump around and give impressions to how this game is, or any game I want to talk about in the future? Or would you like a more focused look at it and a more technical look at it? like I do some of my reviews. I would love that feedback if you are willing to give it. But overall, Monster Hunter Stories was a great time. I enjoyed it. It is like a 7 or 8 out of 10. Probably more around the 7. I would say 8 personally because I'm a big Monster Hunter fan. I feel like from what I've heard from other people, 2 and 3 are more of the 9-10 category, 8, 9, 10 area. So if you do want to skip this one, I don't think it is a detriment. However, I do think you are missing out on some really enjoyable things here. A lot more enjoyable than I thought, and I'm happy I took the time to go back and play this through. I'm happy I shot it to the top of my backlog, and if it's on anyone else's, I recommend playing it through. It might just be that game you like to play on the side because it does have a very handheld-like nature where you can jump in for a few minutes and then pop out, being it was on the 3DS. So, that has been everything I want to talk about for Monster Hunter Stories in this review because I didn't want to get any spoilers. Wanted to give you guys a general idea how it was. Like I said, if you enjoyed this, let me know. I had to overly explain some things, I know that, but especially about the series and all. But I hope everyone enjoyed this video. A more casual video from me. Look forward to more in the future. I have quite a few other videos on some backlogged games that I have finished recently, so we'll see how I end up talking about those. But anyways, I will hopefully see y'all or talk to y'all in a later video. Peace.